The John Lebang Show has been known to make people laugh, sing, think, scream, throw things in rage, and generally lose their minds. Listener discretion is advised.
Worldwide and out to the greater universe, you're listening to the John Lebang Show.
Greetings, Earthlings, and alert the media. The banger is on the microphone. Apparently, Harvard researchers are preparing to geoengineer the atmosphere. And it's coming out in the mainstream manufactured news. Apparently, to the public, the first of its kind study, scientists will disperse aerosols into the stratosphere in initial tests of a controversial technique for blocking incoming solar radiation. This team at Harvard University is preparing what they're saying is the first of its kind in the field of experiment in the hotly debated area of solar geoengineering. They're calling it this idea to combat climate change by pumping aerosols into the sky to reflect the sun's rays back into space. And I need to make aware to everybody who is listening right now that this is not some new thing that they are just now for the first of its kind ever test. Maybe it's the first Harvard's been involved with, but they've been dumping aerosols into the atmosphere since at least 2007. That's when I first noticed the chemtrails. And longtime listeners of the John Lebang Show are going to remember all the times I've spoken about chemtrails and them geoengineering the planet with the chemtrails. I don't know how many people I've actually enlightened when it comes to this subject. People will look at you strange and be like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. Then you point up to the sky and you see what people think are contrails, but these trails don't dissipate because they're not made of condensation. They're made of aerosols. You know, those same things they were all mad about spraying cans back in the 80s. The aerosol problem that we were having, it was creating a ozone layer problem. And it was burning up the ozone. Well, now they're going to, according to Harvard, they're going to start doing that. And I'm telling you, from all of my research and from the many hours I've covered the subject here on the show, that they've been doing this since at least 2007. That's when I first noticed it. You see, when I was growing up, when I was a little kid, when I was out there playing baseball as a teenager, even as a young man when I lived in Seattle, you never, ever saw planes flying low enough to release a trail of what they're saying is condensation, and for it to remain up there and turn into a cloud. You never saw that. That never existed. In fact, back when I was growing up, and many people my age and a little older are going to remember that we used to see clear blue skies without any planes dispersing anything. No contrails at all. That was a rare occurrence when we saw contrails, and it was in the wintertime. Yet now, every time you look up, you're seeing this plane trail this way and this plane trail that way. And Harvard University, with the big lie, saying that it's the first of its kind. It may be the first of its kind when it comes to Harvard University. But this has been happening for at least a decade, we'll say. That's when I first noticed it. I used to do daily weather reports showing the chemtrails in the sky. I'm not the only person who was exposing this either. There are plenty of people out there on YouTube. We used to do this thing called the Weather Share. There's a huge group of YouTubers strictly devoted to the weather. And on this subject, chemtrails. Yet Harvard University is trying to claim that they're the first ever. We've gone over many times on this broadcast of all the patents, the weather modification patents. And you can go through the archives that are on my website, www.jalebang.com, to find all that information. But they have had patents in place for many years. And I know by video evidence that I have produced myself through my own investigation that they have been dispersing aerosols in the atmosphere, in the sky there, to make artificial clouds. And what are they talking about here in Harvard? That's what they're trying to do. They're going to have planes fly at an altitude, disperse these aerosols, and they're going to spread out and they're going to make clouds. And if you look into the subject, you'll read that this has been happening all over the world. It's not some new phenomenon, and all you have to do is look up and see that these planes that are leaving these trails are not flying far and far apart, thousands and thousands of feet apart. No, they're flying next to each other, dispersing these things. They're going back and forth in the sky. They're crisscrossing. They're not just flying from one destination in California and landing in New York. Whatever these planes are doing, they're crisscrossing the sky and they're layering this dispersant all over the place. And there's usually more than one plane. And unless you're near an airport, you shouldn't have so many planes that you could see visually. Because most planes fly up into the, upper 20s and 30,000 feet. You're not going to see a plane as a human being. You're not going to see the contrails as a human being if they're that high. The planes that are dispersing this aerosol are maybe 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet up. We can see the planes. We can actually see that the dispersant is coming out of the wing section or the belly section, depending on the size of the aircraft. It's not some new event. But you see, the reason we're starting to hear about this in the mainstream manufactured news is that they can no longer hide it. It has been exposed by way too many people. There have been way too many instances that can be shown that these things do exist. And so because of that fact, there's been a decision somewhere up in the higher degrees of the world leaders that it's time that they come out of the closet with this chemtrailing of the skies, that they finally make the public aware of what they are doing. And they're claiming that it relates to climate change. Yet we're heading into a period where scientists are claiming the sun is going to have less solar activity, which is going to cause the sun to be less hot, which is going to affect the planet Earth. And we're going to see cooling from it. So the idea that these dispersants are supposed to be to reflect the sun, to cause the Earth to cool, maybe this is their way of exposing it to everybody. Everybody needs to know about this now because it is way too prevalent, it's way too in our face, and they can't hide it anymore. And because they can't hide it anymore, they find Harvard University, they could have found Yale, Harvard and Yale, always behind this sort of stuff with the rulers of the world. Most of the leaders of the United States come from one of those two universities now, don't they? So somewhere up in the degrees of the power structure of the world or the governments, they've decided that they need to come out with this information. It is already public. They might as well make it available. It's their way of coming out of the closet, coming clean. And now nobody will question why they're doing it. They're just saying, oh, it's for climate change. Oh, it's for climate change, just geoengineering. But they've been doing it for at least 10 years. That's how long I've been studying this weather modification, this geoengineering. But now that Harvard University has come out publicly that they are going to begin the first of its kind, which is a bunch of bull crap. It may be the first of its kind for Harvard University, but this has been going on for an awfully long time. But now that they can't hide it anymore, now they can't sweep it off the headlines, now they can't get rid of it, because it's not that fake news stuff. It's not manufactured, it's real news. And we have to wonder why they're really doing it. Because if they're just coming out now, publicly, there was a reason they were hiding it for all these years. And it's probably the fact that we can't go back anymore. We have modified the weather so much on this planet. Now, let's not forget, John F. Kennedy, back in 1961, went to the United Nations and talked about having global satellite network and weather modification. Them two in unison. We know for a fact we have that global satellite network available, running at full speed.
We shall propose further cooperative efforts between all the nations in weather prediction and eventually in weather control. We shall propose, finally, a global systems of communication satellites linking the whole world in telegraph and telephone and radio and television.
So if that was the goal of the United States back in 1961, and we're talking over 50 years later, you don't think we've found a way to modify the weather? And all the people who were poo-pooing, oh, they'd never do that. You guys are crazy. Now, Harvard University, right there on the table, along with dozens and dozens and dozens of patents that you could look up online. Just go to Google and type in chemtrail patents, weather modification patents, geoengineering patents, and you'll find them. I've read them right here on the show. I've talked about it 30, 40, 50, 60, I don't know how many times. And you don't think these things that they're going to be spraying in the atmosphere, that they have been spraying in the atmosphere, could possibly affect the health of everything on the planet? If you're going to block the sun, isn't that going to affect photosynthesis even in a minute manner? And if you're affecting the plants, you're affecting all the life on this planet? Anyways, folks, that's the first break music. Gotta take one. Please check out our sponsors because they support us, and if you support them, they will continue to support The John Lebang Show. Hey, don't touch that dial. The John Lebang Show will be right back. I promise. If you are elderly, disabled, receiving SSI or Medicaid, and you have a medical need or require assistance with daily housework, shopping, grooming, medication, you may qualify for housekeeping at no cost. Call now. VIP Home Healthcare, 248-579-3805. VIP Home Healthcare, there when you need them. That's 248-579-3805. Check out the new book from Derek Shelmerdine,
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
It tells the story of rock and roll from its roots right up until the mid-70s punk.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Not just the music, but also the events that shaped the music.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
It includes the backgrounds to recording sessions, singles, album releases, births and deaths, epic concerts, and festivals.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Shelmerdine has made a painstaking effort to document pretty much every event that would prove significant in shaping popular music.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Purchase the book at www.rockandrollunraveled.com. Follow them at Twitter at R&R Unraveled, and look them up on Facebook at Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
By author Derek Shelmerdine.
Available now.
You're listening to the John Lebang Show.
Join the radio revolution right here.
It's better than some good Thai stick, man. Yes, I would like some too. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we're cruising along here. And, you know, I get very passionate about that chemtrail issue. There's more issues to talk about. I mean, there's a lot in the news. And I want to focus on this United Airlines and them removing this passenger forcibly because they overbooked. And because they overbooked, some people had to get off. And because people were like, hey, I bought this ticket. It's not our fault you overbooked. They decided to pick people randomly, apparently, and remove them. And now it's caused a real problem for United Airlines. And this all could have been avoided by just simply going, hey, dude, whoever wants, let's say, $20,000 you want to get off the plane, we'll rebook you onto another plane and we'll give you $20,000. Instead, because they do it the way they did it, like a bunch of thugs, they're now over $1 billion in losses since then. $1 billion. Because people don't put up with that stuff. And because United Airlines happens to be an idiot run by idiots, they decided to do things the bully way, even though they're the ones who screwed up. It's going to cost them at least $1 billion. That's where they're at right now. Probably more when it's all said and done. And they could have avoided all this by saying, okay, if we overbooked, let's offer some money, $20,000, $30,000, even, hey, $1 million, whatever it was, it's still going to be cheaper than the money they're losing right now. What they should have done, outside of maybe asking the people nicely and offering them a hell of an incentive, you're getting stuck in a place you don't want to be. So offer me something pretty awesome, and I bet you 4, 5, 6, 7 people, the first whatever they needed, people would have got up and took the money. But because of this stupidity that happened with United and their basic managing of their flights, because they're trying to pack everybody in on an airplane, squeeze as many people as they can. They pack in even extra just in case 1 or 2 cancel. And when nobody cancels and they need to get an extra flight crew on there, tough cookies, you people who paid are the ones that have to suffer. And instead of doing this thing the right way, because I'm telling you, the American people, if you offer them enough money to do something, they'll do it. Oh, 20 grand and I just have to wait for the next flight? I got it. I'm on it. Don't even give me a flight. I'll drive for 20 grand. But these modern corporations do not know how to deal with people anymore. It's not about customer service. Nobody in the business world wants to accept any responsibility for anything. Just like the people in government. The difference is the American people hold the businesses responsible. Now people are telling United Airlines to go screw themselves. $1 billion over something that could have been handled much differently, could have been handled for less than 100 grand. Some people would have got off for 10 grand, maybe 5 grand. You start low and you go high. Okay, since nobody wants to get off for 5 grand, let's have an auction here. 6 grand, 6 grand. Come on. Get off the airplane for 6 grand, 6 grand. Nobody taking for 6 grand. Let's try 6.5 grand. But they didn't do that. They said, you get off. You, and you. The one gentleman was like, I don't want to get off. I'm not going to get off. I paid for this ticket. I paid for this seat. I followed all the rules. And he gets thrown off a plane, carried off a plane, dragged off a plane. Is that how you want modern businesses to deal with their customers? And instead of United Airlines doing the right thing in all this, they're hiring themselves one of the big-ass lawyers out there, one of the high-powered attorneys to fight this. How ridiculous. You see, if they would come out with some kind of commercial, some kind of promotional campaign here in the next few weeks, they could also put this behind them. Because all they have to do is come out with a campaign, the $50,000 guarantee. If we overbook the flight, you get 50 grand. That would end the whole controversy, wouldn't it? You know how many people would go to United Airlines? You know how many people would start booking over at United when they put that incentive in place? Because people are just going to want to do it to catch you. You're giving out 50 grand if you overbook to everybody you've overbooked to? Well, dang, let's book on United Airlines. And instead of everybody saying the hell with United, now everybody would be going to United Airlines. And all the other smart carriers out there, if there's any smart carriers out there, like Delta, Southwest Airlines, whoever it might be, I don't fly anymore, so I don't know who's even still in existence in the travel industry. But any of these other airlines could offer a similar deal. If we overbook you, $20,000 guarantee. If we overbook you, whatever it might be, offer a deal like that, and you're going to see your customer base increase, because there's going to be people who are just going to go there and take your airline because they want to have a chance at taking your money from you. And the guy they dragged off, or anybody else they could have dragged off, couldn't they offer them a lifetime air flight if you do this? If they don't want to hand out the money. Free plane flights anywhere you want to go for the rest of your life. It still would be cheaper than what they're seeing now, with billion-dollar loss, and looks like it's heading even higher and higher and higher. But that's what happens when you send, or when you recruit people who went to business school and who actually hasn't been in the field with the people the whole time. It's all about numbers. Oh, we overbooked. Let's get a few people off there right now. Get them off there. Thinking there wasn't going to be any repercussions. And when you force in this modern age where you can film, everybody can film something on their camera. In this 21st century, you're going to pull shenanigans like that? You deserve to lose $1 billion. You deserve to lose $2 billion, $3 billion, whatever. You deserve to go out of business. Because the American people work hard for their money. And when we book something, when we buy something, when we put our money behind it, we expect it to turn out as promised. And that gentleman who was forcibly removed was not promised he would be forcibly removed. He was promised for his hard-earned money that they would take him from point A to point B, and maybe point B to point A again. It's incredible. Just incredible. Anyways, folks, we're up against a quick break here. On the flip side, we're going to talk about Trump, World War III, China, North Korea, South Korea, Japan, and where we're headed. Stay tuned.
Don't go anywhere. The John Lebang Show will be right back.
You'd be crazy to change the dial now. CRRM, CarePoint Billing Services. Their billers and managers are all dedicated to working for you to increase your profits. For more information, call CRRM at 248-579-3805. CRRM, CarePoint Billing Services. And I'd like to welcome our new sponsor, Pane in the Glass, commercial and residential window cleaning. For a beautiful, sparkling shine that's crystal clear, call Pane in the Glass Window Cleaning. You can find them on Facebook at Pane in the Glass.
Hey, man, it's at the bottom of the hour, man. Do you know where your kids are, man?
Forces of darkness, the treasonable maggots who collaborate, must, can, and will be wiped from the face of the earth.
So going against his campaign promises, Donald Trump unleashed a massive barrage of cruise missiles on Syria in retaliation of a supposed chemical attack from the Syrian government on a population center of its own country. The regime inside Syria was making gains with the aid of Russia against all the terrorist groups that were attempting to topple the government inside Syria. The leader, Assad, was gaining support from his people. And yet he's going to use a chemical attack which would bring practically the entire world down on them beyond what's already happening. It would enrage the United States to launch, and it did. We launched a massive strike inside Syria. 59 cruise missiles. That's no slap in the face. That's a pretty hard hit. But we're supposed to believe that Assad, according to the mainstream media, the talking heads, all your favorite political figures, like John McCain and those people, we're supposed to believe them, again, that chemical weapons, WMDs, are being used or going to be used or have been used by just a terrible regime out there in Syria. And whether Donald Trump was fed faulty information, real information, he maybe, as Monograph has suggested, somebody or some group is blackmailing the president. He's going against his campaign promises and what he criticized Obama for, and that was striking into Syria. I mean, whether Assad did that or not, it's really none of the United States' business. What goes on there? It wasn't a direct attack on our country. Sure, it was a horrific act. If you want to believe Assad did that, it's still not the United States' business to handle that problem. Wouldn't that be the UN or NATO? But we are the strong arm for both of those organizations. And the United States taxpayer have to flip the bill at about, $1 million or so per cruise missile. And again, the mainstream media, your favorite manufactured news organizations, along with all the talking heads, are out there in concert. Syria chemically attacked their own people. Yet when we look into some history, the past news that has come out of Syria, we realize that Al-Qaeda, ISIS, these terrorist groups, whoever is actually in charge out there, if they're all working in concert with each other or if they're all ragtag little groups, they have documented fact that and I'm talking the United Nations and other organizations have documented fact that on at least 52 occurrences, ISIS or these other rebel groups, whoever's in control of these WMDs, have used chemical weapons against population centers, even against U.S. military. We saw a story that came out a year or two ago how ISIS found those supposed lost WMDs that we couldn't find, that the United States couldn't find. They found them in Syria. You can go to Fox News and read a story there. If you don't want to take some of the alternative media sources and you want to believe the mainstream manufactured news, well, then you can go to Fox News. It's right there for everybody to see. Top intel officials confirm ISIS made and used chemical weapons. Washington Times, ISIS used weapons of mass destruction against the U.S. The Daily Star in the UK, ISIS unleashes WW1 chemical weapons after finding Saddam Hussein's secret WMD stash. So there's documented facts stating that ISIS and the groups they're affiliated with have control of chemical weapons and have used them, not only against civilian populations, but against the United States. And yet, we attacked Syria for supposedly doing the same thing. Yet there was no retaliation of this sort by the United States, whether it was under President Obama or now under Trump, against the terrorist groups who use these chemical weapons on populations. This is not made up stories, ladies and gentlemen. This is mainstream news. All you have to do is go into your little Google search there and type in ISIS uses chemical weapons or WMDs, and you can find tons and tons of articles talking about that. Yet we're jumping to conclusions because of some evidence that they're claiming. There's some drones they see or something, that Syria was the perpetrators of these attacks. And maybe they were. But there's plenty of evidence to suggest that ISIS not only contains or has some of these weapons, but they have used them in the past. Now, some people are saying, well, they don't have sarin gas. How do you know? And if you look at the pictures, there's some questions there. Was it sarin gas? Because sarin gas is a nerve agent, is it not? These people look like they were choking. Could have been some kind of chloride attack. Do you really want to believe the mainstream manufactured news on WMDs? Just asking. Do you want to believe John McCain or any of the talking heads on WMDs? We've been through this before, ladies and gentlemen. Them telling us, oh, this regime has WMDs and they're either going to use them or have used them. It took us years through Iraq. We couldn't find any WMDs. All of a sudden, we leave, ISIS finds them and uses them. Yet it's the Syrian government who supposedly chemically attacked their own people. I have to say, I'm not. This is a deal breaker with the Trump thing for me. Because during the election, not only did he criticize the Obama administration for attacking into Syria, but he made it clear that he wanted to make things friendly with Russia. And you think launching 59 cruise missiles, Mr. Trump, is going to make things friendly with Russia? I don't think so.
Everything's political. It's very, very sad. Then we bombed the Syrian troops. You saw that over the weekend. We bombed. I guess we killed more than 80 troops, and now Russia's absolutely furious at us. But we bombed the wrong people. I mean, we're like the gang that couldn't shoot straight. Our country, with this leader, is the gang that couldn't shoot straight. That's what it is.
Everything we were hoping for with the victory of Donald Trump, that we were hoping for, well, maybe things will cool down between us and Russia. Because it was hyping up. It was getting worse and worse and worse. Well, doesn't look like it's going to happen. In fact, it looks like it has now escalated. And if I'm going to give my opinion on this, it's not that hard for a group like ISIS, who has affiliations with, yes, Mr. John McCain and other shady persons. It's not out of the ordinary for them to maybe have a drone or two or three or more. We've got articles on that they've been working on, if not building drones and using them. But all of a sudden it's Syria doing all the bad stuff. And maybe they did. And I'm not condoning if Syria did use chemical weapons on their own people. It doesn't make sense, but if they did, I'm not condoning it. And it's a heinous act, but it does not require the United States to get involved. We shouldn't be launching cruise missiles at the tune of $60+ million on something that not only didn't threaten our country in one bit, but there was really no authorization from Congress to start attacking Syria. And we got the people who are voters of Trump who are just jumping on the bandwagon. Let's hit him, let's hit him. I'm like, isn't this what you voted against with Hillary? We were worried all this stuff was happening with Hillary. We saw it happening. Syria is because of Hillary and Barack Obama. Libya was because of that.
What difference at this point does it make? It is our job to figure out what happened.
Those failures, the total destruction of those countries is due to, in large part, to Barack Hussein Obama, Hillary Clinton, John McCain.
So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province.
And this is it for me. You're not going to get me to jump on the bandwagon with this when this was one of the campaign promises, as far as I'm concerned, from Trump. He was going to stay out of this stuff, and he was going to make friends with countries, not escalate things. This is in relation to the Gulf of Tonkin, as far as I'm concerned. And if you think I'm going to believe that Assad attacked his own people when he was winning the war and he was gaining popularity, I'm not. It doesn't seem like it's feasible. It's not something that I would do as a leader of a country. I'm winning a war. I'm getting aid from Russia on wiping out all the bad guys in my country. Now I want to ask you a serious question. Does this help anybody? Us attacking Syria? Us taking out an airport? Does this help anybody? Well, whether directly or indirectly, it helps out ISIS and the terrorist groups. We just became their long-range attack squadron. And let's say, for conspiracy's sake, that it was ISIS behind this. Let's not forget that it was John McCain and Hillary Clinton and Obama who were funding these rebel groups. It was Obama who pulled us out of Iraq and left a vacuum there for an organization like ISIS to grow. The days of Donald Trump not being a New World Order guy is gone in my eyes. Whether he was manipulated, whether he was part of the thing, and it's just now squeaking out, whatever it might be, we are now seeing that the New World Order is back in control. Did you feel the shift again? I felt the shift. Remember that shift I talked about after the election? Well, I felt it shift back in just the last few days. Oddly enough, Bannon leaves and then all this stuff starts happening. Trump still hasn't confirmed or hasn't gotten his full cabinet confirmed yet. So there are people inside the government that he has to rely on that are part of the big brother state, the military-industrial complex, the New World Order. And he has to rely on those people. And whether he was duped into this, whether he was tricked into this, or whether he's been a part of it all along and we're now starting to see the mask come off, I'm done with it. This is not what the American people voted for. We've got bullcrap thing on Obama. That got out. Now this. All the executive orders that we don't like executive orders. And yet, it's okay to do them. That's the part I'm having a real trouble with the Republicans on this one. We're supposed to hold a higher standard, right? No, the Republicans say, hey, if the Democrats did it, let's us do it. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below.
Don't touch that dial. John Lebang Show will be right back.
You can bet on it, man.
Powerful, epic music by Toothbox Roll. Life-changing lyrics come in every style, empowering humanity to finally unlock the chains of bondage. Experience the edgy side of positive music and rock your world today. From Primal to Divine, available now at sassyalternativemusic.com.
If you want to contact the John Lebang Show, feel free to send an email to jlebang@live.com. And if you're on Twitter, look him up at John Lebang. And don't forget to go to his Facebook page at The John Lebang Show. Banger. Now here's John.
You know, it's almost like the Bush-Clinton cabal won the election, isn't it? The way things are headed again. We're back towards this march of being at odds with Russia. We're back to interfering in Syria. We can't repeal Obamacare. Funny, I thought Donald Trump won the election, but apparently the Bush-Clinton cabal still runs the country.
What difference at this point does it make?
The war on terror is an ongoing priority for our nation.
Then we have Mr. Sean Spicer, the moron. I mean, they got to drop this guy as press secretary because he's an idiot. Out there saying that Assad's chemical weapon attack, which there's still no proof that it was Assad. Where's the investigation? That's not something you can determine by watching a few videos, right? This guy addresses the situation with the chemical attack and says Assad is worse than Hitler because Hitler never used it. Hitler never used chemical weapons. I don't know. There are those death camps.
Someone as despicable as Hitler, who didn't even sink to using chemical weapons.
Apparently he comes out after and says, well, in battle. No, they used too many in the First World War. Maybe they were, low on supply. They were testing it out on the people in the labor camps to see if it would work.
When you come to sarin gas, he was not using the gas on his own people the same way.
So I think this Sean Spicer should be out of there. Feels like the people who won the election didn't win the election. When you look at the body of work that has come out of the Trump administration since the inauguration, there hasn't been a whole lot that actually has taken place that has actually moved us in the direction that the promises of the campaign were offering.
Thank you. I appreciate that. There was not he brought him into
this move with firing 59 cruise missiles willy-nilly into Syria, aiding ISIS and the terrorist groups. They're the ones that are going to benefit from Assad not having an airport, which it looks like they're rebuilding anyways. It's not going to take a whole long time to rebuild that airport. And there were casualties in that, folks. We're not hearing them in the headlines because the mainstream manufactured news, John McCain, Lindsey Graham, all the people who hated Trump, the never Trumpers, all of those people are now on Trump's side.
The goal for the United States is twofold, as I've stated. It's one, to make sure that we destabilize Syria.
All the people that were, we can't vote for Trump, Trump's this, Trump's that, Trump, not a good president, all of a sudden everybody's cheering him. All the mainstream manufactured news outlets, hurrah, Trump bombed somebody. I thought there were a bunch of liberals over there. They're not supposed to like bombing people, but I guess if it helps the ratings. John McCain even likes Donald Trump now. Lindsey Graham. You know when everybody's cheering an action that somebody has done, and they were all opposed to him prior to that, something smells fishy in that, doesn't it?
The goal for the United States is twofold, as I've stated. It's one, to make sure that we destabilize Syria.
It's amazing the turn of events.
Yes, we can.
And what I am considering a false flag attack. Whatever happened in Syria with whatever supposed chemicals, in my opinion, it's a false flag. Assad had no reason to do this, as far as I can tell. Russia was in there whipping some butt. And the only people who get helped out by the United States launching cruise missiles are the terrorist groups.
It's one, to make sure that we destabilize Syria.
And then you have the press secretary again there. He's letting us into a little bit of stuff he let slip here. Take a listen.
Creating the environment for a change in leadership.
Regime change. So everybody's got to leave Syria. The terrorists got to leave Syria. Assad's got to leave Syria. We can't have anybody running that country, right? Somebody is going to fill that void there. And I guess apparently we're not happy with any of the groups. Even though it's not our country, it's not for us to decide. And we're supposed to be fighting ISIS. And we're helping them out. Like I said, it's like the Bush-Clinton cabal is still in order. Like Obama's still running the whole show.
So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province.
Sure, Obama didn't unleash cruise missiles into Syria. He did the covert way by funding all the terrorist groups. The ones that are, they're not going to call them terrorist groups, though. They call them freedom fighters, the Free Syrian Army. But we start looking into who's involved in this Free Syrian Army, and there's not a lot of free there.
So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province.
And again, this goes against what President Donald Trump was saying in the election.
Then we bombed the Syrian troops. You saw that over the weekend. We bombed. I guess we killed more than 80 troops, and now Russia's absolutely furious at us. But we bombed the wrong people.
He literally criticized, as you heard earlier, he criticized the Obama administration for getting involved. And now President Trump, who probably made a completely emotional decision because there was no way they could investigate properly and thoroughly enough in the short time after the supposed chemical attack and the strike of 59 cruise missiles. And as I brought up in one of my articles recently, that maybe the cruise missile is out of date and they are just trying to use up some of the old weapons so they can make room for the new weapons because they're going to have to decommission them soon or something. So they were like, what better way than to just fire them at Assad? This gives us a reason to launch on them. But why don't we launch that type of barrage against all the terrorist locations that we know of? This is the 21st century with the greatest intelligence apparatus in the history of the world. They can pinpoint anybody anywhere at almost any time Yet, when it comes down to firing cruise missiles at the bad guys, we only pick one sort of bad guy and not the other bad guy. And we take out the bad guy that's fighting our supposed enemy. Assad may not be an ally, but he wasn't a direct enemy as far as we were, at war with Syria. Or we're not supposed to be at war with Syria. But we're going back to that axis of evil days, aren't we? The Bush-Clinton cabal.
This is a regime that has already used poison gas to murder thousands of its own citizens.
And it seems like we're back on that course. Like we only had a temporary speed bump in the right direction. And then once we hit that speed bump, it pushed us back into the hands of the cabal. The ones running the show for the past 20, 30 years.
These regimes pose a grave and growing danger.
Saddam Hussein must not be allowed to threaten his neighbors or the world with nuclear arms, poison gas, or biological weapons.
I didn't vote for increased conflict. I voted for making sure that America came first. And I'm yet to be explained why Syria is crucial to America first.
I'm a very militaristic person, but you have to know when to use the military.
And I'm yet to be answered this question as well. Why would Assad attack his own people when he's gaining popularity and he's winning the war against the terrorists? Why would you bring the whole world down on you? These are things that we're going to have to continue to investigate here on the John Lebang Show and continue to report to you and to give you our opinions of what's going on. But I don't have the answers right now. But I can tell you what, in my opinion, this was a false flag operation. And if somebody doesn't right the ship soon up there in D.C. in the White House there, somebody doesn't get the reins back on course to where we were, where the American people wanted us to go, where the American people voted for, the things that they voted for. If somebody doesn't right that ship soon, we're never going to right it. Because the ship has gone off course. And the captain steering the ship has steered us off course and has steered us right into the current that we tried to and successfully tried to avoid. But instead of the captain taking the ship and continue to cruise away from that current, he turned us right into the current. And it was really hard, as most of you know, to get ourselves out of that current in the first place. What a world, folks. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen, for this hour of
The John Lebang Show.
I'd like to thank all of our affiliate stations. Don't forget to go to my website. That's www.jlebang.com. Thank you all for listening. And until the vibrations of my vocal cords reach your ears again, and for some of you, that's in the next hour. This is John Lebang signing off from the Banger Studios.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff. Tune in again next week. Same time, same space, same station.
Resistance